Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody here. First, I want to say it's so wonderful to see Charles back. We've been praying for Charles and all the soldiers that were over there. And you know what? We need to keep that up. We still have a lot of soldiers out in the world right now that we need to be praying for safety and keep them in our prayers. So, second, we'll talk about some of the building project stuff that has been talked about a little bit before. And the opportunities that are going to be coming up for your participation in helping with some of these projects, as well as the special offering. And we had mentioned this special offering a couple weeks back. Never kind of got to it. It's partly my fault for not communicating better. But we are going to have a special offering on the 29th of this month, the last Sunday before the end of the year. And that's for, we've already received some money for the projects coming up, but it's officially going to be that day that we can receive those gifts, and the funds that will be received will be going towards supplies for a new wall in here. Just want to tell you about, there's will be a new wall to be put in place. Take care of some of these chairs that sit in back so we won't have those sitting out, as well as tables that take up a lot of our storage issues. To allow us to have some more storage. We'll be professionally replacing the flooring, all the carpet in the front foyer will all be changed out. Meeting with the guy tomorrow to get that going. That's going to be probably the first part of January, maybe mid-January. And then we will be redesigning our foyer area for the welcome area. This will be us doing that work, as well as the wall. That will be us. And painting throughout the building. We're going to be repainting, which will also be us. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for help. So we're going to need a lot of help. And as well as the special offering, God's going to bless us. It's going to be a wonderful time. And I want to let you know, one of the things we're working on is developing this budget for deferred maintenance. And if you may not know what that means, it means something where we have some funds put aside to help with things that need to be replaced in time, right? Like the floor doesn't last forever. We can have money put aside that helps pay for that, so we don't have to have special offerings all the time to replace things. That's what we're going to be looking forward to going forward like this. And God has blessed North Lakes, right? God is blessing North Lakes now, and God is going to bless North Lakes going forward. And I know this because of our desire to serve Him by seeking and serving the lost of this community. And it's going to be a wonderful time going into 2025. I can't wait for it. I can't wait for the changes. I can't wait for the excitement and the joy we're going to bring this community. All right, well, now we start off on a good note. Let's go on to the message. And I don't know about you, but when you see a stump, what do you think about when you see a stump? Maybe you don't think about stumps if you see trees cut down. But every time I see a stump, I think of anybody ever see this book here? This book, anybody? You think of a stump, right? And so yeah, and if you don't know, this is called The Giving Tree, and it's a book by Shel Silverstein, and it's a book about two people. One, there's this tree, and the other is this little boy. And so the tree, if you don't know, I'm going to spoil this book for you, but I recommend it. It's a good read. And if you don't, it's been around for like 60 years, I think, right around. But if you don't know, it's a tree who wants to give, right? And she sees this little boy, and invites this boy into the tree. And the boy climbs and plays in the tree, and the boy just has such a great time. And the boy leaves and comes back and doesn't really, comes back too old to play in the tree. And so the tree's like, well, here's the thing. Let me give you some apples, right? He gives apples, and because he likes, so he can make some money, do something with the apples. And so the boy or young man kind of goes and sells the apples, and he comes back again. And again, the tree just wants to give. And the young man wants to take. And so the tree gives apples, and he gives branches, and then eventually the tree gives the trunk of the tree. And just to an older man who just wants to sail away from his problems, right? Because the tree gives this trunk as a boat. And at the end of the story, you have two things. You have an old man, and you have a stump, right? And I remember even thinking when I read this before, that's kind of sad, right? It kind of seems like it's sad. I just remember thinking, I'm not sure this book was meant for kids, right? Because it seems a little bit sad. And I think it's more for adults. I think there's a lot we can get out of it as an adult. I just feel like they just had just felt like they had just given and given and given this tree. And so this is one of those classic stories that just stick around for a really long time in your head. And I think the reason is that it stuck around for so long, I think for most of us, is this understanding of giving and taking that we have. It's a common thought that we understand this process and what it really means to give and what it means to have people take. And I think the stump is one of the clearest metaphors you can possibly have for just literally potential it's gone, right? There's nothing left. Like maybe when you see a stump, some of you can be like, well, maybe things will get better. You look at the stump and you're like, no, it's not going to get better. Like at the stump, there's no playing on the branches anymore. There's no apples. There's no limbs. There's no more trunk. It's just kind of like, it's just what it is, right? And even for today, I think where we're going to go, I think a stump can kind of help us say, what are those places and spaces? Because a stump is a good metaphor, right? What are those places and spaces in our life that we just, you go and, hey, look, this situation that I've got going on right now, if I'm honest, it's not going to change. It feels like it's not changing. Like what's going on right now, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a job, maybe it's an opportunity. I don't know what it is. God knows what it is, though. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But a stump is a place, and I think it's a powerful metaphor where there's seemingly just a seeming end to maybe what you thought could have been happening in your life. Like I think it's powerful because a lot of us know what it's like to just give, and give. And anybody know what it's like just to feel like you're giving and giving and giving? And even wonder if you should have given so much in your life? Because as you gave, someone took, and they took, and they took, and maybe they took what they shouldn't have taken, and they weren't really grateful for what they took. And somehow in the middle of that, and the giving and the taking, we're just left with not a whole lot. And maybe you were the person. I know I've been a taker in life before. Maybe you took advantage, or maybe you took this situation for granted. But as clear as I can say, a stump for me, and I think it can be for us today, it can be one of the clearest metaphors to say, well, at some point in time, maybe things were great, and maybe things could have been. But what I want to talk about today is what happens when potential is gone. And the end is here, and is what it is. It's not going to change. So I think a stump is not just a metaphor for us. I think a stump is a powerful metaphor in general. That's why God used it in the book of Isaiah to a group of people who were probably in their lowest non-potential point of their lives. There's no future to them. Like this is the end moment for them, that they had never been in one like it before. It's God's people, and after years of just all these promises and all these things He put in them, He just felt like it just felt like it was over, right? As a matter of fact, there was an army that was coming in. They were about to lose their homes. They were about to lose their place of worship. They had already kind of lost their faith somewhere in the giving and taking process. Their kids were literally being carted off so that their future seemed really, even their heritage seemed very bleak. But see, then God jumped in. He stepped into the middle of His people's lowest moment. I mean, He stepped into where there was just no moving forward. And He gave them a word through the prophet Isaiah. And here's what He said. People, I need you to know, this is what He's saying. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. That's what He's saying. So what's a shoot? A shoot is not another tree. A shoot is actually something that's inside of a tree that is from a tree that can draw in all the nutrients, right? And it's basically that wherever that place of that end is, the place of no potential, the place where it's just what it is, God said, I'm going to do something new here. And as I do something new, it's going to shoot up. It's going to come right from that place, not a new place, not a new spring. I'm going to make it actually come from a dead place, seemingly dead place. And as it comes up, it's going to start soaking in all the roots of all these promises and all those things that have been planted that you thought were gone. But you may not know it. but they're still alive and they're still kicking. And I'm going to shoot that up, and as a matter of fact, he goes on to describe what that's going to look like. All of a sudden, he says, the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. And Jesus says, God says, by the way, that shoot has a name that's going to come up. It's a person. I'll let you guess who it is, right? But he's going to have the spirit of wisdom, which means that maybe you didn't know what to do, and maybe no one else did, but he's going to know what to do. And he also is going to know how to do it. He's going to have the spirit of understanding. He's going to have compassion in his wings. He's going to have understanding. Maybe because he has made it like, he's made like us in every way, so that he could understand us in every way that we didn't dare dream he could. He's going to have the spirit of counsel, like this kind spirit that comes alongside and it doesn't just bark commands at you, but pulls you in because of counseling and friendship with you. And then he's going to have the spirit of might, right? He's going to have power. If you think something can't happen, he's going to make sure it can happen. He has the power to do it. And then eventually the spirit of the knowledge of the fear of the Lord, which is an understanding of who we are and who God is, and that we are not him. And so God says, hey, listen, right at the end of what you think has no potential, and it's done, I'm going to give you something new, and it's better than you've ever expected. Now, obviously, this is a prophecy, right? This is Isaiah. This is a prophecy. If you're new to prophecies in the Bible, I'm going to have to give you a spoiler here. This is a prophecy about the Savior, right? That who's going to come 700 years later after this moment in time, after this prophecy, but he's going to come, right? And when he came, what was so amazing was he didn't just come to a nation and say, I'm going to make you a great nation. He said, better than that, I'm going to come to a nation of people, but I'm going to push past the nation. I'm going to come to all people. I'm going to be one at a time, go to one person at a time, and I'm going to bring salvation to each and every one of you. I'm going to bring restoration to the people of God. And guess what? After 700 years of a promise being made, the good news is, which is why we celebrate Christmas, he came. He came, family. Jesus came to this earth. The light has dawned. The great God who meets us at our stump and restores our souls. And the only one who has the ability to meet us in our is this it moment. The one who can come and bring something new and unexpected. And so here's what we're going to do. I want to give you a little bit of a journey. We're going to go on a little bit of a journey today. And I want to kind of walk us into an opportunity. And I've been praying about this a little bit this week, and let me put it like this. I'm going to make an invitation, basically. That invitation, by the end of this, I'm going to kind of frame it like this. I'm going to talk about three types of people today. We're going to talk about three types of people that God has come for. And then we're not just going to talk about like who he came for, but when we're going to talk about how. Like, how do we even possibly go to the place where you know there's no changing? And allow God to do something new and make something new from that moment. But the invitation is to find yourself in one of these three categories to step into. Because I believe today that you could still step into and find today his wisdom and understanding and his counsel, his friendship and his might in ways that will blow your mind, right? Things that we don't even understand. Passes all understanding, right? So you ready? You ready for this journey? All right. It's a little adventure. We're going to go on it. Okay, so who did Jesus come for? This is important, right? I'm just curious to see where you're going to find yourself, right? Okay, so who did he come for? He came for the good, right? How many of you feel like you're good people? Who's good people in here, right? Like mediocre on a good day, maybe? No? Okay. He came for good people, right? But what does that mean by that? Well, if we're being honest, our society is kind of super judgy right now, right? kind of judgy. I don't know why, but we always want to talk about it. Well, that person's bad, but I'm good, or this person's good, that person's bad. And I just want to say that most people think, by the way, that they're good people, right? You could be a mass murderer and you'd be like, I was really nice to the waitress though, right? I was a good person. But are you good, really? So most people, when you talk to them, it's like, man, I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. I want to be good. I just do bad sometimes, right? I think God comes, and I just want to say, God comes for good people, right? He comes for them. Perfect example of that, John chapter 3, verse 1. It's just a story. It says, now there was a Pharisee, right? A good guy, right? Sadducees and Pharisees, two types of religious type of people. Jesus, he really liked these two groups, right? There was a Pharisee, and his name was Nicodemus, right? And Nicodemus was a member of the Jewish ruling council. He was like the guy that came up with the rules to make sure that the other guys and could be good guys, right? And he came to Jesus at night. Now, why did he come at night? Why would he come in the cover of darkness? Well, because I think good people are kind of like Christmas trees. Well, you're probably going like, what? Christmas trees. You ready for this? So it's kind of like a Christmas tree. Now, how many of you okay, I asked this question about the trees. I know, anybody here have a living Christmas tree in the rooms right now? Anybody new? Asked it. Okay. Not many. Like a good living Christmas tree. It's tough. You go and get the Christmas tree, and we pick it out, and then we kind of like cut it, right? I remember this story. We went and got a Christmas tree once, and we walked out there, and lots of snow, and we couldn't find the right Christmas tree, and then we get to this. We walked forever, it seemed like, and there was a full moon out, and then we turned the corner, and there's this tree, and then the light glowed on this tree. It's a perfect tree, but we didn't have a saw, right? We didn't have a saw. We couldn't get so we had to dig the tree out of the ground. We took it back on our station wagon with the roots and everything. Okay, so I'm still in that. We didn't actually happen that way, but it's like a good Christmas tree, a living Christmas tree. We want one, right? We do whatever we can to have one. If you ever had one, it's difficult. It's a challenge, not just the taking out the ground part, but getting it into your room, right? And we go and set it, and we put it in water, right? You put a living tree in water. And we make it pretty on the outside. We get it all dressed up. And it's beautiful, right? You get these trees, and they're beautiful. They smell good for a little bit. And people walk in, like, at your house, and what do? It's just like, I love Christmas, right? I love Christmas. It's so cozy, so warm. I love this place. It's just so, right? It's so beautiful. You get this tree. And good people are a lot like Christmas trees, okay? Because right off the bat, they're like, hey, I just want to be the kind of person that when you walk into the room, people go, oh, wow, feel how warm they are. Look how amazing that is. And look how I've cleaned up my language, right? I've cleaned up this. I don't do that anymore. I'm not angry as often. And when you walk in the room, I'm a good person. That's what it looks like. But you know what I see when I see a Christmas tree? A tree that's about to be dead in 2 months. Right? Why? Because no matter how much you crawl under that tree and put water in there, at some point you can't keep that thing alive when it's not connected to a source. Doesn't matter how pretty it looks now. And so there's this brittleness. Anybody ever keep their Christmas tree too long? Ever have that happen? Then it stays in your carpet forever too. It starts getting sad though, right? And the stuff starts dropping off. And when I think of good people, I think of Christmas trees. I think of people that's somewhere in that giving and taking that's like, man, I love working on the outside. And then at some point you realize, and it's going to come eventually, that all of this is dependent on me, and I can't hold the weight anymore. I can't be wise enough. I can't have enough understanding and counsel. I don't have the power. I'm not connected to the source. And all of a sudden you start recognizing that you can't give what you don't have. Jesus came for the good. The good. Second group of people. maybe you find him here, is he came for the detached. And you're like, I'm not this guy. I'm not detached. Wait. Just wait. Let's look. So we find this in John chapter 4. I'm going to start with verse 6. And it just starts to walk us through this story. And it says, Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, he's tired as he was from the journey, and sat down by the well, and it was about noon, right? That's going to be important. It's about noon when the Samaritan woman came to draw water. Now, what you need to know is, and you can go to this well. This well is there today. Jacob's well actually exists even today. It's in the West Bank area. It's kind of down. It's super hot in the area. But wells at the time were like the place to be, right? I mean, we talk about water cooler talk. That's what wells were. You went there to talk, converse with people, right? We just got sheep and stuff going on around the well. And here's the thing. Here's what we do. If you want to hang out and you want to laugh, guess where you needed to be there back in those days? At the well. If you want to find a wife, she's going to be at the well in the mornings, right? Where are you going to meet her? That's where you're going to meet her. If you're a young girl, because no older woman would ever want to do this, but if you want to catch up on a little gossip, you went to the well, right? Not a lot, just a little, right? Then you go on, not together and go, you see, nowadays you get women that go to the bathrooms together, right? That's the whole thing, right? Back then they went to the well together, right? Carry that water. And wells are these places of like connection and relationship. And I know where you're going to be, because they're all going to be there in the morning. They will be there. Right? Like anyone that needs to be there is going to be there in the morning to get the water. You're going to talk, and it's going to be amazing. But the Samaritan woman came at what time? Noon. So she wanted to come at a time when she knew, I'm not going to be around those people. I'm just not sure I want to be around them at all. I think I just need a little distance from those people. And to be honest, she just started thinking, well, maybe I can just avoid those people. Maybe I can just keep away from the real conversations. So fast forward in the story, and it's a great one to read. If you haven't read it in a while, I challenge you to go read it. You have a woman who finds out that she has five husbands, and the guy she's living with is not her husband. And you go, oh, she's not avoiding people, she's just because she doesn't like people, right? Which is what some people, the grumpy ones are like, right? Like, I just don't like people, I don't want to hang around people. So she doesn't not like people, it's just, that's not why she's avoiding. But she has a brokenness in her past. She has a brokenness, we have a brokenness in our past, and it pushes you, and it pushes you, and maybe you thought you could get there, right? Just like she did. Like she could make it through life, just pushing through. And maybe you thought you could overcome it like she thinks it. But at some point you recognize that in your past of being broken and being hurt and being abused and being pushed to the side, at some point you learned something that you keep returning to, that is, you learned that alone is safe. Alone is safe. Being detached is safe. You don't get hurt. Well, Jesus came for the detached. He came for the ones that don't think they belong with other people. The last one in this group. And maybe you haven't found your niche yet in the first two. We might get there. Let's just see. The last group is overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. Jesus came for the overwhelmed. And I'm just going to say this group is the group that it just feels like there's always something that just feels like it's like a gravitational pull towards something that's just, you're just not sure why you're there, right? Like you just keep getting overwhelmed in life with things, and it just feels like it's too much in this world. And so I tried to find someone in the Bible that fit this, and this person is literally the clearest person I could find in the scriptures. That literally I can't find another person that Jesus ran into that doesn't have like literally every single strategy of the enemy overwhelming one person quite like this guy. He's overwhelmed. And that guy, if you know the story, it's Mark chapter 5, verse 2. And it simply says that when Jesus got on the boat, he had crossed over the sea of Sea Galilee. He said he got out, and there was a man with an impure spirit who came from the tombs to meet him. And so maybe we look at this guy because he's like the clearest picture of, if we could just put everything on you, this is what it looks like. So let's just unpack his life for a second. Let's just see if there's not one or two things that you might say, oh, that is me, right? So first thing is this. It says Mark 5, verse 3 says this. The man lived in the tombs. Which one? Anybody here said, like, oh yeah, that's me? What? Anybody here live in tombs? Anybody live in the cemetery? No. Like, well, wait a second. Hey, hang on. Maybe you've never lived in the tombs, but have you ever lived in the season, or are you currently living in a season now where you are magnetically drawn to dead things, dead places? Anybody like this? Right? Like they're magnetically drawn to the wrong guy, or magnetically drawn to the wrong woman, to the wrong business deal, the wrong partners. This man, it's like the key of their keys of their car. When they put them in, they keep driving to these places that they're like, that's going to get you killed. There's no life there. There's nothing good here. And yet, it's like this magnetic pull for people. They're overwhelmed, and they end up living in a place that no one should ever live, the tombs. Second one says it this way. It says, no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. You're like, man, this dude's crazy, right? Like they're chaining him down, and he's fighting, and he's breaking free of these chains. It's crazy. So it's living life around people that you just want to help you, and you always feel like you're tied down. Feeling like you always have to escape from where you are. Feeling like in life there's just always someone else to blame. Always someone else to blame. And you're running from one friendship to the next friendship, from one job to that job, because nobody really has anything good for you. You always feel like they always have it out for you. Like somebody's holding you back. There's always somebody holding you back. Third one says, night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would just cry out. Something inside of him that just couldn't stop. And most of us are like, man, that dude's crazy, right? We just said that he was crazy. But is there at least one or two people in here that night you literally go to sleep while scrolling through your phone because you can't stop to think for a minute? You can't stop the voices of regret, the voices of shame, that you're a terrible mom. Why did you let that happen? You're a terrible husband. You're never going to change. These voices that you hear. Like we have gotten so good at covering the noises in our lives. And because we know that internally we have these voices of regret and voices of anxiety, how are we going to get through this? Am I enough? Am I going crazy? What's wrong with me? All these things, and it's just night and day, right? Continues on, right? Mark 5 says, poor guy, he cut himself with stones. Isn't that crazy? I mean, we say that we know cutting is not a new thing. It's been around for a long time, this self-harm, but somebody who would literally pick up a rock to cut themselves. Why would you ever do that? Well, you don't know until you know, right? You don't know that sometimes even the destructive things that you do are an opportunity to feel something. You want to feel it. You haven't felt in so long, and you're looking for something that makes you feel. So yeah, you continue down the self-destructive path because at least when you drink, you feel. Or at least when I hurt, I feel. At least when I yell, I feel. The thing you have to go to Luke, though, actually, to do this. The Mark account doesn't give it to us, but Luke 8:27 says it like this. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes. And you're like, so the dude's naked also, right? Yep, he's crazy and naked. That's why I don't start there, because, you might just be stuck on that one, because I would have lost the whole thing there. But it's interesting. This part is interesting, because all the stuff that just got so overwhelming. Ever seen this? Where they just felt so overwhelmed, and they just had to break out of that, right? People just break out of themselves. One of two things. Either the clothes got less and less, and the workouts and the focus and the hyper focus on the exterior, all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm going there. Here I feel overwhelmed, and I'm just going to go get a job. I'll go get a new car. I'll buy that thing. I'll track that thing. It's always something. But it's this crazy thing where sometimes when we're overwhelmed, it causes us hyper focus on the exterior. Have you ever been there before? So I just want to say, anyone find yourself there? Like some of you are like, all three, right? All three are me. That's okay. It's not a problem. It's not, because the light has dawned. And Jesus has come to meet the good and the detached and the overwhelmed and to completely restore you. You're like, okay, John, so look then. So how like, if you knew my life, if you knew what was going on, if you knew the fact that it's not like I haven't tried, it's not like I haven't been there, how in the world is God going to meet me in the dead thing and the old thing and the broken thing? And here's the thing. And you can go, if you had met me 10 years ago, it would have been great. But he's going to meet me today, and I have nothing left. You're at the stump of life. And I know that's why I'm so glad that all three of these people, the very first thing he did was, so okay, let me meet you in the broken. That's what Jesus says. Let me meet you in the dead end, in the impossible place. Let me bring you, I'm just going to call it a fresh start. That's what he's bringing you. Anybody need a fresh start? And he just says, listen, whether you're good, I'm sure you're good. You're not that good, but you're good. Maybe you're a little detached or completely overwhelmed. And he says to Nicodemus, he says, John 3, verse 5, he just answers him. He says, very truly or truly, meaning I can't tell you something more truer than what I'm about to tell you. So listen up, Nicodemus. No one can enter the kingdom of God unless they are born of water and born of the Spirit. And here's what Jesus would say. Anybody need a fresh start in the room? Well, here's the catch. You have to be born again. I can't give you 5 steps in the new thing and the app that runs, that makes that wakes you up and you're like, rise and grind and do this and be born again. Like, I can't give you a 12-step process that's going to do what would happen if you decide, I want to give my life to Christ. Because it's his relationship with you. It's different. You say, I want to be reborn. Not like to dress up the old thing. I bet that, we can make it look pretty good, but carve something into it. I've seen some of the stumps with the carvings. Those carvings are amazing, right? But it's still dead, right? Those trees are dead. He wants to do a new thing, and he can do it. But you have to humble yourself. You have to get on your knees and say, God, I want a new thing. I want a new thing in my life. I want to accept you. I want you. I want you in my life. I want to be born again. It's why we do what we do with the baptistry. That's why we baptize. That's why we provide this here. We don't like to just get people wet and go, well, we washed them off the outside, right? The outside's clean. You're good luck, right? Go on. We're signifying a fresh start. And he just invites us in. And he says, let me tell you about this. Verse 16, he says, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish. See, this isn't your end. But you can have eternal life with Jesus. I just want to say, and as some of you know I'm talking to you, and maybe you've put it off, this new start that you know you need. And some of you have never made it. You never said yes to Jesus. You never repented and been taken the step to be baptized. And it's time for a fresh start. But he doesn't just give you a fresh start. It's not just that. Aren't you glad? He doesn't just say good luck. He gives us a fresh start, but then he gives us a new source that sprouts up inside of us. He doesn't just say, okay, there you go. I hope you make it. I hope you do something well. No, he says, I'm going to give you a fresh start, but then I'm going to take all that root system, all of the promises of the past thousands of years that have been made, and create creation itself. And I'm going to let that root system be the one that backs you and feeds you and fuels you on this new life. Every promise that has ever spoken for the last history of the planet can be found in you. And he said, I want to give you a new source. I don't want you to have to, we're going to get you baptized, but then you're going to out reading horoscopes or something like that, or trying to do some gyms, or trying to get some business coach to help out. But you don't know the source of Jesus. Like that's not helpful if we just let that happen. That's not how it happens. If you've never plugged into a new Father, if you've never plugged into knowing His Word and letting it consume you and becoming your source, you've never plugged into really connecting with the Holy Spirit in the way that love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and self-control just comes out of you in your life. You've never really tapped into the source. Kind of like the Samaritan woman. She comes to Jesus and she's like, yeah, I guess I could take, you seem like a good guy. Why don't you answer some religious questions for me, right? And he's like, okay, yeah, you're a sweet girl. Yeah, I'll answer your question. And that's my translation, by the way. And he answered her, if you knew the gifts of God, the gift of God, who it is that asked you for a drink. Do you know what I want you to do? Do you want to know what you would do? You'd have asked him, and he would have given you what? Not the old stuff that came out of the well, the nasty well water, like rooted, secure, forever water. And it would well up in you, and it would fuel you forever into eternity. We need a new source. This world is not a good source. But then thirdly, this might be my favorite. I had lots of favorites, but some of us, we need a new start, right? Some of us need to read or plug into that new source for the first time. But then lastly, I wanted to say this, we need a greater power than we have here on this earth. Some of you right now in the room, you're like, John, man, I would love nothing better than for God to meet me where I am. But you don't know the forces that control my life. You don't know the power that from my brokenness, from my childhood has over me. You don't know what that relationship that I was in, and I don't want to talk about it right now, a lot right now. Some of you have really felt the weight of this world. And it has power over you sometimes. And there's some unanswered questions that have just gone on for so long. But there's this power. And it's the voices and it's the stuff and this weight that pulls at you with this world. Just always feeling your life is headed in this direction, and you're just like, man, God, I need you. I need you right now. But I don't just need you, I need your power. I need you to show up. I need you to shift my world because I can't do it anymore. And I'm overwhelmed, and I don't know how to do this. It'd be great if I could just, start at the beginning again. Ever feel like that? Excuse me. It'd be great if I could get plugged into a source sometimes, right? As that feels like. I'm just telling you, the forces that are driving my life, I can't make them stop, right? You keep trying. And the King of Kings would say, watch what I can do. Right? We have all these words. We all talk about all this stuff going on. And all he has to say is, watch what I can do. Mark chapter 5, if you don't know the story again, read the story. I don't have time to pack the whole thing, but Mark chapter 5 says, when they came to Jesus, and this is the crowd, remember this is the naked demonic guy, right? You think you got issues. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed, had been at the end, right? He had been overwhelmed. He had been off on his own. He had been totally disconnected. He'd been like this man, not just a little bit of time. We don't know how long, but you don't get that wrecked of a life without having a whole lot of history to get to that point. But all of a sudden, we run into the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons. It's part of why some of you are going, oh, that one's me. right? And that one's me. It's because most of us don't have one thing. We have lots of things in our lives weighing on us. But all of a sudden, because he met Jesus on his knees, there he was sitting and dressed in his right mind. Now, I'm just here to tell you whether it's a snap. Now, I don't get it. Sometimes he gives a snap. Jesus snaps and it happens in your life. He's the boss. He gets to choose how things change in your life for his glory. Sometimes it's over time, and he slowly pulls you out of that thing and works with your mind and walks you through that process of transformation. But what I know about Jesus is that when you get to the feet of Jesus, chains drop, addictions break, and voices flee. And there's one way to do it. And it's not like God, I kind of need this thing. No. Let's back up. Let's be clear. Here's the path. You have to say to him, I want the free gift of salvation. I'm going to repent of my life. I'm going to confess my sins. I'm going to be baptized. For those of you that are new, you need to say to him, I want that free. I want to accept you as Lord, which I can do for free. Some of you that have been dead for a long time in religion, you need to say, I almost rebuke the spirit of religion in my life, right? Because sometimes this religion aspect of things gets skewed and gets us taken away from what God has intended for his word. I'm telling you, you need a fresh start in what's the truth. And when you start there and you say, I want a fresh start, I want to know you, I want to know Christ, I want to be forgiven, I want to repent of where I've been, and I want to be baptized. And when you say that, and God, so plug me in and give me the power that I can experience, that greater is he that is in us than he who is in the world. And when you do that, I don't care if you're a good person, I don't care if you're a detached person or a completely insane, overwhelmed person. All of a sudden, that stump that you have looked at your whole life and just wished would change, God meets you there. He doesn't see in the end, he sees the beginning. He doesn't see a place of defeat, he sees a place of meeting. He sees it as a place of grace, he sees it as a place of surrender, and he begins all new things, all new restoration processes in your life. A light has dawned. We have an opportunity to be restored. A light has dawned. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the promises that you give us. We thank you for loving us, that you so loved us that you sent your Son to be a sacrifice for us so that we could be with you forever. Lord, help us let not this world hold us down. It can be overwhelming in this world. Help us to lean on you, draw upon your power to know that this world has no power, that you have it all. It's all a ruse. We thank you for your power and your love. And in Jesus'